This is the bottom of the bodysuit dress, and I'm going to be sewing binding onto this bottom edge. Here's my piece of binding, and this is the right side. So I'm going to put the right side down on top of the right side of the fabric here where I'm starting, and I'm going to leave a little bit at the beginning so that when I sew on top of it, it'll be easier. Okay, now that you're going, you can stretch this binding just a tiny bit so that it doesn't get wavy after you stitch on top of it. I'm not pulling very much, just a slight stretch as I sew. You can see there's a lot of extra binding at the end. That's pretty common in the measurements because it varies a lot how much you're stretching and what kind of fabric you're using. So I always add a little bit extra just to be safe. So when I'm done, I'll just clip that extra off. And there you can see it's sewn on. There's a little bit of stretch, as you can see back here, but not much. I'm going to show you how to sew on top of it next. Now I'm at my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on top of the binding. I always make sure that my thread matches the binding. It just looks a lot better that way. So I have black thread in there. First of all, make sure your machine is on a zigzag stitch. So I gotta change mine. And adjust the width and the length of the stitch to whatever you like personally. Okay, now to start, this is the back. You'll lay the seam, the serged seam, down flat toward the edge of the binding. So when you're looking at it like this, make sure the seam is pointing down. And then you'll just fold this piece of binding up underneath, just once. That's all that knit fabric needs. And we'll be doing it from the top. With the serge seam pointing this way, fold the binding over and under. So then it'll look like that on the back. Before you start sewing, make sure that your presser foot doesn't have any pressure on it. Otherwise it'll stretch it out and make it look wavy. You're going to have to constantly adjust as you're going, so just remember to keep looking. To make sure you get an even stitch, keep this edge here lined up with the spot, maybe on your presser foot or sewing machine. And then if there's still a little bit too much pressure, I like to lift the foot just a tiny bit with my thumb to take all that pressure off. This is what the back looks like. Sometimes there will be a little extra length here that you can trim off. It depends on what kind of fabric you're using. Mine looks good, so I don't have to trim it.